I'd never seen a teacher that was as big in their ideas with students as what I thought the most talented people in the world were like in their careers. Do you know what I mean?
That's the greatest gift, because again, it's not like I would give line readings. It's modeling behavior.
It's just you. It's like you bring so much to the table. There's never a lack of ideas or a joke or a place to take it. It doesn't matter how challenging it is. It doesn't matter if you're having a bad day. The well just never runs dry. And there are hundreds, if not thousands of kids that received it.
This is Arts Educators Save the World, where successful artists and their mentors talk about how arts education transformed their lives. Welcome, everyone. I am delighted to be back with guest host, Story Pirates, Jamie Salka.
Erica.
Hi, Jamie. Last time we talked, you and I were sharing a mic with your college bestie, actor and comedian Billy Eichner, and our shared college acting teacher, the great Mary Poole. Well, today, Jamie has brought with him another longtime friend and artistic co-mischief maker, actor Emily Deschanel. Given Emily's success as a film and television actor, I will keep my introduction short so that we can get to the real star of today's show. You have probably all seen Emily in the long-running TV crime drama Bones. I know you have, because she was nominated for 6 People's Choice Awards for her work. But did you also know that Emily has performed as a voice actor on some of our favorite shows? The Simpsons, American Dad, BoJack Horseman, and she is a regular on the thriller paranormal podcast Agent Stoker that I now plan to listen to. More importantly, Emily is an artist activist working on issues of veganism and animal rights, as well as advocating for better conditions for actors in Hollywood. She's already had a large platform to share her views on why it's crucial for us to treat each other with empathy and joy. Emily was this past year's commencement speaker at her alma mater, Boston University. But it's in this more intimate space where I'm excited to hear how she became the empathetic, joyful person that she is. Emily, welcome to Arts Educators Save the World.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Most importantly, to introduce people to Scott Weintraub and the joy that he is. Scott is an actor, director, and educator. He started his acting career studying with Bradford Dillman and then many people at Pacific Conservatory of Performing Arts. He went on to star in the National Tour of Hair and was an artist in residence at Theater by the Sea in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. He has been seen on TV in shows as diverse as Deadwood to Curb Your Enthusiasm. Very different shows. For nearly 40 years, Scott taught and directed theater at Crossroads School in Santa Monica, California, which is where we met, where Jamie Salka and I met, and where he taught us and directed us, and that's why we're talking to him today. I'm going off my script that I have, and that's not a good thing. Okay. While teaching at Crossroads, he taught many people who went on to have careers as actors, from my sister Zoe and myself, to Maya Rudolph, Jack Black, Maude Apatow, Jason Ritter, Simon Helberg, just to name a few. He recently wrote a book with his friend and collaborator, acting coach and movement director, Jean-Louis Rodrigue. Scott, am I pronouncing that correctly?
That was perfect. There were some other words that it's okay.
What did I say? What? Tell me what I did wrong.
No, I'm just making that up because you have to give someone a note so they feel like you care.
Oh my God, I love it so much. The notes section will be later on, Scott. Okay. With Jean-Louis Rodrigue, entitled Back to the Body, Infusing Physical Life into Characters in Theater and Film, which I can't wait to hear more about. And it makes complete sense that Scott wrote this book. These are some things that people say about Scott in the book. This is what Jay Roach, director of films like Meet the Parents, Bombshell, Austin Powers series, say about Scott. What instantly got my attention was the way he coached, inspired, and evoked incredible performances out of so many very young and inexperienced student actors. His productions of Shakespearean plays performed by fifth graders were moving, heartbreaking, and sometimes very funny. I bet always very funny. That's me adding that. And his high school productions of Candide were one of the most moving and spectacular in-theater experiences I've ever had, including shows I've seen on Broadway and in London. Now, I've been thinking about what Scott means to me leading up to this conversation. And Scott was my introduction to acting and theater. I want to be able to see him and also look at my notes. But I started Crossroads in 9th grade, and I had never really done a play before. I had never really acted before. I think we did a Christmas pageant at the Catholic school that I went to for a part of elementary school. And so Scott was my first introduction to all of it. And I can't even think of how important that was and how, I could have gone so wrong, Scott. It could have gone so wrong, and it went so right, okay? In the 4 years of high school, Scott directed us in dramas like Street Scene, and he directed, directing our improv troupe. Scott, do you remember this improv troupe?
Vividly, I remember a moment when in that improv troupe, where it was in the Tanya Harding thing, and you were, who was the Russian ice skater or what? Anyway, you were just, it was so funny. It was so funny. We didn't stop. It was like a 12-minute thing. It went on. It was just great. I remember.
I don't remember that, but I remember thinking of the name. There's so many things. Scott directed us in dramas to comedies and everything in between. And I think to make this introduction not go on and on and on forever, what I think the most important thing that Scott gave to me in my life was a real love, a joy, finding fun with acting. And in the craft, in performing, and all of it. And that is what I'm constantly trying to get back to as a working actor, as an adult, is finding the joy and the fun. And I feel like, Scott, you bring the fun in the most incredible way. And if I could just, you gave me so many gifts, and we'll talk about those. But if I can dilute it down, it's the joy in the arts, in acting that you gave me. So that's what I'll say. Hopefully that introduction wasn't too long or too short, but there you go.
I'd just like to hear that over and over again, and then I don't ever have to do anything. That was what beautiful it is. It's better than it's like I don't have to die, because I'm not going to have a better eulogy than that. If you get nothing else from me, the sense of joy and danger and excitement, it's like, I don't know, you remember whenever every show I would start, we're there, we're cast, and I would say, okay, here we are, what do we got? Here we are ourselves, we have the space, we have this material, we got 6 weeks. What can we do? And in 6 weeks, there's going to be people in here, and we will create magic. And we did. And I think part of it, the other thing I was always pushing was about take risks. It's who cares?
Yep.
Just whatever you want to do it. The worst thing is that it won't work. It was incredible. And I chose shows, I think, that most schools don't do. I don't know, Erica, if you're familiar with Street Scene, because not many high schools do it. Matter of fact, Jamie was in that as well. And Ben Covette was in it, and Lex. Oh, God.
I know.
The biggest, craziest, again, as far as taking risks, it was the 30th, 89. It was the 30th anniversary of the school. And they wanted to do something that combined all their performing arts. And I said, let's do A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Oh, yeah.
And we can have middle school and upper school and elementary school. I said, we can get some little elementary school fairies to be there in the forest, and we'll use the chamber orchestra. They had an incredible chamber orchestra, and with the elements of the Mendelssohn score, cuttings from that, and Rosemary Valère with dance and ballet.
Oh, yeah.
Rosemary Valère, who's the West Side Ballet. She was like
my
a
ballet
dance
teacher.
Oh
yes.
my God, she was from the Royal Ballet in the 40s.
She'd walk around with her cane and kind of like put us into place. Yeah.
And so it was, and what I did is I say, tell you what, I'll direct it and I'll co-choreograph it. And I will cut the play, and I'll find the cuttings from the Mendelssohn score, and I'll design the costumes. And so it was already a monster. But I said, okay, how many will get? Maybe 15 kids from the elementary school. Erica, any guesses how many elementary school fairies we had?
Every single kid in the elementary school?
65. Mm-hmm. It was a cast of 135 people.
Scott.
It was
I was
crazy.
in it. I don't remember that. I mean, I feel like my sister was in it too.
Anyway, it was this extraordinary monster. Jamie was in it. And if you go through everyone who you've ever known from that school was in it. It was ridiculous.
I want to talk a little more about risk-taking. So in my work and in my book, I talk about the most important aspect of a successful classroom that starts with an arts classroom as scaffolding risk-taking, right? So you can't really learn anything new unless you're willing to take a risk, but you can't take a risk unless you're set up to do so, right? You can't just say to people, take a risk, particularly when they're doing things that they may have never done before. So, Scott, can you talk a little bit about how you set the conditions for risk-taking? And Jamie and Emily, maybe can you reflect on the ways in which Scott's condition setting allowed you to do that kind of risk-taking?
I'm excited to hear Scott's thoughts, and then I have my own strong opinion on this that I'm eager to share.
Neither of you were at the elementary school. I started out at the upper school, then I started and again, as far as, I'm an actor, my high school drama teacher from when I lived in Santa Barbara had just become the chair. And I'd come out here, I'm going to be an actor, come from the East Coast. He said, you want to teach a couple of classes? Okay, great. And then my son was born and Rachel was growing. And I said, just be good to have a steady job. So I took on more classes. So I was in the upper school, then the middle school. Then I started at the elementary school. So for not 37 years that I was there, but for 35, I was one of the only teachers. I think there was only two others, and they were in athletics, who taught in all three divisions. So as far as taking risks and feeling safe with the, maniac at the helm, I would introduce children to story. I originally was doing kindergarten through sixth grade. Sixth grade moved. This is boring as hell. But kindergarten, I would teach them about the elements of dramatic structure. Every story has a beginning, middle, and end, protagonist, antagonist. There has to be a conflict. And it's stuck. But as far as teaching risk, I decorated my room, and in the iconic picture that I had, front and center, was the famous picture of Harold Lloyd hanging off of the clock in downtown Los Angeles to constantly be a visual reminder to take risks. But on the first day, I would explain, when I say take risks, I don't want you to, close your eyes and jump off the chair backwards, okay? So we talked about safety, but then we talked about the danger of, what could happen if you have an idea and it just totally falls apart. And it's like, who cares? That's it. That, and the other thing was the most important thing, and one of the few times I really got in trouble, was we never tell well, that was a stupid idea. What'd you do that for? What are you, a loser? And I was like, don't you ever do that. And a parent was walking by and went and told the director of the elementary school, and she had to talk. She said, you really can't yell at the children. Well, yeah. So at the beginning, the whole foundation of how I taught was I do a whole thing about tools. If you're a construction worker, what tools do you need to do your job? I need a hammer. I need a saw. Okay. Now I'm a chef. What do you do? What do you need to do? I'm going to work. What tools do you need? Oh, I have my knife. I have my spatula. I have a good pan. I have recipes. Okay. I'm an actor. I'm going to work. What tools do I need to bring with me? And the things that they would come up with, and I'd say, no, it's a trick question. The tools of the actor are the self, yourself. And the self is made up of your voice, your body, your mind, and your heart. When I say heart, I don't boom, boom, boom. I mean your heart, your soul, your spirit, whatever it is that makes you who you are. And you use those things in concert, or if we're doing mime separately, then you can accomplish miracles. And that's what we do.
I'm curious, Jamie and Emily, about your experiences with Scott and all he said, but also all you experienced in coming to learn to be risk takers.
Well, it's really great to hear, what was in your sort of stated curriculum. It's been so long that I don't remember the specifics of it, but I remember the sense of all of it. As you're saying all of that, I remember the feeling of discovering theater as a, sort of developing, more sophisticated young adult, and being mesmerized by you personally. And the risk taking that was obviously so important to you, the way that came through so clearly to me was in the way that you took risks. The showing as much as the telling was what I sort of took away from it. And I remember almost like I think I worked with you starting with Midsummer Night's Dream, which was a like absurdly large production that you were putting together. There were like parents acting as like traffic managers backstage of all of the groups coming and going. I mean, it was like, it was like a parade. Like the amount of scenery and humans and elements that needed to be coordinated was colossal. And that's sort of the thing that I remember the most and sort of have taken with me was the boldness of, I just didn't know up until that point that a teacher could be that bold. Teachers were, I had amazing teachers. I had life-changing teachers up until that point, but I'd never seen a teacher that was as big in their ideas with students as what I thought the most talented people in the world were like in their careers. Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember looking at you and thinking, this person is as funny and talented as Robin Williams or Billy Crystal, and he's directing it to us. There was like a state of almost like, I can't believe we got so lucky to get someone that I respect so much, who's like shaping us and guiding us on a daily basis. And I don't know if you remember this, but when I went off to college, I stole the nameplate off of your office, and I took it with me and I put it on my door at Northwestern.
I got to tell you, I made that the administration very, very nervous. What is he gonna? And there were sometimes risks I wanted to take, and again, it's choosing the material. I mean, there are not many high schools that do Candide. because, who's going to sing Cunegonda? And the thing is, when I would choose a show, I did not precast, but I would make sure, do I have someone who can do this? Now, sometimes it backfired on me. Street Scene, for example, I didn't have enough men. I was short. There was a role of the doctor. He had 2 lines, and I swear to God, I was out in the alley hunting. I bumped into this one guy, and I said, "Hey, listen, he had been in one of the classes, and he wasn't a big actor, but he was, and I said, I need you in the play. If I could do 1 blocking rehearsal, and then you come to the 2 dress rehearsals, and then you do the 3 performances. That's all I need." He said, "Okay." And it came time for the blocking rehearsal, and he didn't show up. And I called him up, and I said, "Hey, man, what the hell? What happened?" He said, "You were serious?" So anyway.
Well, you do have a way of talking sometimes. Like, you seem like you're joking when you're not, probably. Because
you're joking all the time. You're never not joking.
Constantly,
but
so that if you're not joking, we don't know. Maybe.
Emily, I want to hear a little bit about your thoughts on risk-taking, but before we do, I want to pop in with like a little Erica nerd moment about your comment about selecting material or content as risk-taking, and was reflecting on, what if that was the way we thought about other subjects in school? We often select content for its accessibility, for its ease of comprehension, and this idea that we can, as teachers, we can be bold in how we choose what we engage our students with. I think, Scott, is so inspiring, not just for theater educators, but for all educators, to think about, why do we choose the content that we choose, and how can we use that as another springboard into thinking about risk-taking? I think that's a really phenomenal reframe of content. So I really appreciate that.
And before Emily says that, let me just jump in and address that, as far as there is so much material that all teachers have to cover and grade all the stuff and write all the grade reports, and also staying with the syllabus and the long-range plans and the scope and sequence thing. I was teaching for, I think it was like 15 years, and they kept saying, you need to hand in your long-range plans. You have to do your long-range plans. And it's like, especially if you're teaching younger children, and even in the older children too, it's like, here's my lesson plan. This is what we're doing today. This is not working. I got 45 minutes with them. It's like, okay, we'll do something else. And so I finally did write down, and actually I will send to you my long range plans for each grade. And it actually helped me. I would still just go off, but as far as choosing the material, that was the key. And there were people when I would be doing the show even saying like, "Oh, we can't do this."
Emily, thoughts about kind of scaffolding risk-taking and your life as an actor?
I mean, I love hearing about this. It just makes, I always say that my favorite moments in doing a play is when you forget your lines. Because all of a sudden, first of all, you are all of a sudden, if you are not present in that moment, you have to be present. I mean, you're aware of the audience, sure, and all of that a lot of, when you're in that moment. But you have to surrender. And if I hadn't had Scott as my teacher for those 4 years, that might be really terrifying, or more terrifying in a way that is, constricting or whatever. But to me, it's very freeing. After you get over like an initial shock, like the room kind of comes to focus. You're like, oh crap. Okay, I have no idea what's gonna happen next. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I'm just gonna have to look at this person and we're gonna figure this out together. It's like jumping and hoping the net is there, And but I love those moments so much. It's that risk that feels so good. I want to just go back for a moment. I was thinking about, and I think Jamie, touched on it a little bit, but the fact that Scott, side note, I happen to be talking to other parents because I have 2 kids about teachers and how, and like one parent was a teacher too. So we're talking about teaching and how, if a teacher kind of approaches something like, I am perfect and I know exactly how things are supposed to be done. And then, they get embarrassed and they said something wrong and they get embarrassed and then that, the kid gets in trouble. Like someone had an example where their kid was like, actually, sharks can't do that. Cause they were like, the kid was like an expert in sharks or whatever. And their elementary school teacher had like been like, sharks can't do this or whatever. You set the whole situation up. It's not conducive to learning or taking risks. Scott would trip all over himself, be making mistakes on purpose just to show that we were supposed to make mistakes. We were supposed to trip all over ourselves. We're supposed to be messy. That's what art is. That's what it is to create. And like, that was the example that he gave to us. And like, that says more than just telling us like, you can take risks now because we've established this scaffolding
it's
for
like you got to see for yourself what it looks like in a real human to take big swings publicly.
Yeah.
Right? Like the material that you chose and not just the material, but the way that you approached directing the shows. It did not feel like a learning environment in the sense that we were really putting on a risky show for real. And the seriousness with which you approached comedy, right? Meaning taking comedy so seriously as to like push the boundary as far as you can go without crossing the line. Like it was just, it's like eye-opening for a lifetime. Like I still have it. I keep it with me to this day. I remember I was in college and I had an assignment that I didn't, it was about minimalism in theater. And I just, something about it was driving me crazy. And I wrote a paper, the final sort of paper about it, but I wrote it on the mattress that was supplied in my dorm. And the paper was called I'm Not a Minimalist. And I wrote it in Sharpie on the mattress. And I dragged it to the theater building with me. And it's the kind of thing, like, I don't know, like there's probably some part of my personality that would do that, but you don't do that unless somebody in your background gave you permission to be that unhinged publicly, like trains you to think that that's okay. And that was you.
Well, and I think what you're saying, and I think it's so true, is I walked my own talk. I said, look, who knows what's going to happen and who knows what we're even doing. I would block something or I'd say, oh, let's do this. And I was like, well, that's horrible. Let's not do that. I mean, it was, well, that didn't work at all. It was, as far as the taking risks, sometimes I would have an idea and sometimes you're in too deep. You can't go back.
Emily, how does this translate into your work in television and film? Or, does it not? I just am curious how this has informed your career, which is obviously adjacent to this work, but has really different tools, associated with making these stories.
I mean, I see it as same tools. Maybe if you're a chef, you're making a different type of cuisine. I think, like I said, Scott, gave me the love and joy for acting, performing, finding a character. So all of those things still apply finding the physical life. We can talk about, Scott's written this book about finding the physical life of a character. And I mean, I remember Scott saying like, okay, imagine your legs are made of glass, things like that. And your hands are made of butter. Things like that. I just love, it's not that I necessarily, when I'm doing a character, mostly my work is in TV, but I've done film as well. But obviously, you're much closer, right? So, if you are feeling an emotion, it doesn't need to be huge for the audience to see it. In fact, that might be, a little jarring to see that kind of up close, but it's the same principles. It's the same thing. It's just smaller, right? I do, like I said in the intro, like right now for me as an actor, that's my path is I'm finding the fun again in my acting. Not that I didn't have fun. I did a show for 12 years. So you're playing the same character for 12 years. I did 200 and whatever episodes. And you have to do the same kind of scene over and over again. And we would try to find the fun there, true, right? But that's what we're going to say, Scott.
I think that's where the risk taking comes in and the insanity of what we do, because on Bones for 8 million years, you would have these sections, the scientific joke where you'd say, wait a minute, with the eyeball retina, if this can get, it's like, and that's the thing that you always brought to your work. There is an honesty, there is a purity, and there is a heart. And the thing is, I'm just talking. It's really important the audience understand the physicality of the thing with the DNA, whatever thing you were explaining. But it also has to be like that you were getting excited about it. Or you say, how many times did you have to do then she realizes, aha, I know, without just going, meh. So, I mean, it's that's my favorite thing. It's like, okay, do it smart. Do it so we don't even notice it. It's
do it. Take that and then condense it into a smaller thing. I mean, we had opportunities on Bones to do some physical comedy once in a while. That's all Scott Weintraub. I mean, we did all kinds of things that you can tie right back to Scott. I mean,
I can't even tell you how full my heart is now of hearing the two of you say all this about me. I mean, I knew that it mattered. I knew I changed people's lives, but it's seeing people become, that's the whole thing. Someone I taught Jamie, did I mention this to you? That there was a girl who I introduced to story in kindergarten. She played Juliet in the 5th grade Shakespeare. I directed her as Laurie in Oklahoma as a senior. She just graduated from NYU. She got a job. Her first professional gig was in a production of the Titanic at the Agunkwood Playhouse in Maine. Nancy and I were on vacation in Portsmouth, and the day before we came home, she opened. I got to go see her professional debut after first meeting her when she was 6 years old.
Wait, can I just? I want to say I was always jealous of my sister because she had you for all of elementary school. And elementary school, maybe you can speak to this because I also want to go back. I just want to add. The character thing, developing a character, that is also what I took so much from Scott and took with me and still use in what I do, today. But you start in elementary school. Can you speak a little bit about what you did productions where the kids, if I'm recalling correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, the kids would create their own characters out from scratch, essentially. And you would basically put on a show that would be made from scratch? Am I remembering this correctly? I remember my sister doing shows and I'd see these productions and it was so wonderful, so creative. These kids, maybe there was a structure, but I feel like the kids wrote some of the show. They created their own characters. I can't remember what Zoe had done, but she'd made up her own thing and she got to, it's so much more creative. I feel like so many times with kids, they're taken and plugged into some production of like what Aladdin or whatever thing that they're doing, and they're plugged into something, and they don't have that kind of amazing creativity that you brought. Like there's maybe some structure, but these kids develop characters with you and then put on a show. Am I remembering it?
That may have been with the after school program we were doing.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I would put in different characters in the Shakespeare's. It started, the first one I did.
You'd make your own things.
I had more kids than I had characters. So the first thing was in Midsummer Night's Dream, they're in the forest, and here's John Muir comes by and talks about the forest. I put
you teaching about ecological science at the same time.
It was all
multidisciplinary curriculum there.
As far as the character thing, the scope and sequence that I created was in second grade. They learn about story, how to create a story, and I'd read stories, and then they'd act them out. And the other thing is, anyone could be anyone they wanted to be. So we're doing Jack and the Beanstalk. Who wants to be Jack? I do. Okay, Jack's over there. It was, and then third grade was about mime and space work and using your body like that. Then fourth grade was all about character and creating characters. Fifth grade was Shakespeare. So we did a whole thing about learning the history of theater and about the Globe. And then we learned how to understand Shakespeare. Because it's, if you understand what you're saying, the audience will understand what you're saying. So
you don't shy away from hard things, Scott.
I think that's a really important point about joy and fun that I want to highlight, which is that I think there is a misunderstanding, and I've heard this in lots of other contexts around studying, teaching, and learning, that there's this idea that joy and fun is the same as easy, and that, in fact, what we all know as makers of art is that, and Emily, you've said it even a few times in describing some of the things that you like the most about your profession, right? The things that are the most joyful are often the things that are the most challenging. And that's a real gift that we can give back to education as a field, is this reminder, right, that joy does not have to equal simple, easy, lowering of standards, right? Lowering of expectations. And so I really appreciate all of you kind of reflecting on that. And if I may, I want to make one more turn in our conversation, because I really want to hear, Scott, about your book. And I would love to contextualize it, again, wearing my academic nerd hat, and to talk about this idea of embodied cognition. And the idea in learning theory that our brains and our bodies, and I have also started to say, and our hearts, right? So I used to say the head and the body are connected, and now I have started to say the head and the body and the heart are connected. And that is a bit revolutionary in teaching and learning, right? Because we have framed the act of learning as something that is a head-based act. We think of movement as a brain break rather than as a crucial component of what it means to know. And so I would love for you to talk a little bit about the context of your book and the idea of embodied cognition, and also, Emily and Jamie, for you all to think about how that relates to the work that you do.
Well, to start with what you just said, it's heartbreaking. I think it's the most heartbreaking thing in the world. And especially, and the pandemic did help this, because people, when the kids went away and then they came back, they'd forgotten not how to learn, but just how to be human beings. I mean, the teaching theater on Zoom was so ridiculous. as far as, because you can't read the room on Zoom. There is no room. And they made it for the specialists. I mean, we know screen time, too much screen time is not good, but they said, we're going to lose these kids. We'll do all the academic reading, writing, arithmetic in the morning. So then they've been on the screen all day. And then all the specialists at the elementary school, art, music, science, drama, dance, optional. So
my colleague calls those the not so specials.
it was like, what, and I understood, because that's a lot of being on the screen, and to try to I came up with a whole curriculum of stuff they could do alone at home. But as far as it being heartbreaking, what you were saying is, we got to get through this. Everything now is, this is the stuff we need to cover. Here, I'm going to go really quickly. If you have questions, text me, learn this. We're going to test on it. And there's no joy, the joy of discovery. And Emily, you brought that into just the material you choose to do now. And I think probably after you got done with Bones, it was like, what can I do? And I remember just the first thing I saw you in, oh God, mountain. There's a mountain in it, the sad mountain.
Cold Mountain?
Cold Mountain. And it was like, oh my God, that's my favorite thing, is when you don't know someone's in a movie and you're watching TV. It's like, oh my God, that's Jimmy. That's Jimmy. I didn't know. So anyway, choosing that. But the thing of having to get through stuff and learning it, and the idea, as you say, that's the problem. Let's take a break and move around. No, let's move around while we're learning. And the thing is, stillness. The book is my friend Jean-Louis Rodrigue, who is, I don't know if you know of the Alexander Technique, which is, he is one of the Alexander Technique masters. And Sir Ian McKellen comes to LA. He works with Jean-Louis. He goes on set and works with people. He's coached and worked with Margot Robbie in the last 6 films. So it's about physicality, the Alexander Technique, using that. But it's about, we start out with talking about the Alexander Technique and the precepts of that. He's the Alexander guy. I'm not. I've done some. I'm aware of it, but I can't. I didn't do the training.
Feel my posture getting better as we talk about it.
Lengthen and widen, and you're so much more connected and strong. He worked musicians. There's one of my students, great jazz piano player, and he's all like that. And he took and it's just use your whole body. He's worked with Cirque du Soleil. But anyway, so you start out with the Alexander Technique. Then we get into just being in the space, because the space is a character in your story as well. And I always like to say, just like you were affected by the space you are in, the space is changed by you being in it. Then we bring in other people, working with people. Then we bring in props. There's a whole thing about costumes. There's a whole thing about virtual realities. But it's exercises and explorations that you can do alone or separately. There's examples and stories of, how Leonardo DiCaprio found his walk as J. Edgar Hoover. And it's not a textbook. We wanted it to be a workbook where, how when you're in a play and you have a script and you write shit all over it and you draw pictures and things, we wanted it to be that, where you have this dog-eared copy. And so it's
How do y'all think about the sort of use of the body, not just as a tool for doing your work, but as kind of integral to how we do teaching and learning and practice? I think there's something really profound about that. And I'm curious, Jamie and Emily, obviously Scott was teaching that even before he had a book or had words for it, right? Beyond doing the practice in your time together as middle schoolers and high schoolers. I'm just sort of curious how how that sits for you now as professionals and as adults.
One of the things that is such a profound sort of unspoken lesson of having gotten to work with Scott is that you have so much more than you could ever imagine. The well is infinite, right? You know, like it just the sort of learning by example, you know, spending a lot of time around Scott's sort of relentless imagination is infectious, not just while you're in school, but for life.
Yeah.
That's at least the effect that it had on me, to the point where for my living, I run an organization that teaches teachers how to bring more joy to their work. It's just, it's so powerful that I never stop thinking about it, ever.
Oh my God.
That's the greatest gift, because again, it's not like I would give line readings, but it's modeling behavior. It's doing this. And speaking
it's
of
just
which,
it's like you bring so much to the table. You never stop with, there's never a lack of ideas or a joke or a place to take it. It doesn't matter how challenging it is. It doesn't matter if you're having a bad day. There's just, the well just never runs dry. And I just want to say thank you. It's so powerful. It's, and there are hundreds, if not thousands of kids that received it. And, you know, whether it's conscious or not for them, it has an effect on you forever. And it's just amazing.
Well, that and the honesty. I was always honest, and I remember after one of the fifth grade Shakespeare, that we'd have the dress rehearsal for the school in the morning, then we'd do the show at night, and we did it, and I mean, they got through it, and it was okay, and they sat them down afterwards. It's like, hey, how'd you think it went? And I thought it was pretty good. I thought we really just well, interesting. No, it wasn't. It was, let's see, what's the opposite of good? Ungood? Oh, bad. It was bad. And the whole thing at that school is it's like people would go to college and they'd get a D, and it's like, what do you mean? Everything I've always written has been brilliant. It was like, I said, you did everything and you hit the beats and everything, but it lacked energy and life and wonder, and just don't worry about, just go. And they were, wow. And that's what happens is years later, people come back and thank you for being honest.
Emily Deschanel, Scott Weintraub, Jamie Salka, thank you for committing to this bit. I feel like I just had a 90-minute joy bomb and an opportunity to be part of your community. I mean, this conversation, more than almost any of the 60 or so conversations like this that I've had, has felt like a community conversation. And I really appreciate that way of talking about arts education and these ideas that are so important for all kinds of teaching and learning. Hearing from you all about how much, this has changed all your lives. And I'm really, really grateful to you all for giving me the opportunity to hop into this world for a little while. So thank you all so much. What a treat today, Doug, to get to talk to a real polymath, which I know from our chatting off mic, we were doubting whether that word was a word I'd made up or an actual word. But a polymath is an individual with exceptionally deep knowledge and expertise across multiple, often unrelated fields, from the Greek polymathos, having learned much. And the reason I thought of that was that Scott seems to me to be an embodiment of a real polymath, someone who trained as a professional actor and has been a professional actor. He's been on television, he's been in regional theater, and then has had a whole career and life, not just as an acting teacher, but as an arts teacher K-12, which ranges from teaching 6-year-olds about the parts of a story to directing a version of a Shakespeare play with 62 characters to doing advanced scene study with high schoolers. What a remarkable person and career. And to hear folks as successful as Emily Deschanel and our friend Jamie Salka talk about how Scott's polymathism, that is definitely a word I made up, how his expertise across all these areas profoundly influenced them, not just in their training as actors, but in the way they approach the world is really inspiring. And it's different from traditional educators. We've heard from multiple artists who had traditional educators who profoundly changed their lives. And this to me was a little bit of a different conversation, a little more of how do I take aspects of all of the parts of you and how have I embodied that in my life as an artist, as a performer, across media. Emily has worked across different performance media. Jamie obviously is himself an entrepreneur and an artist and a producer. So it's really great to hear that different perspective on what it means to be an educator and a mentor and how that changes people's lives.
Yeah. He also has a very particular brand of energy that I think for someone who crosses the different thresholds of, fields of study, you kind of probably have to have that. He has that sort of avid approach to everything that he does. And that's essential. And it's infectious. And it clearly works really well when teaching kids.
It's such a great point. And it also makes me think about, and I can't remember if we've talked about it on this show or not, but the importance of authenticity, right? Which is that Scott is so clearly authentically who he is. And in a teaching setting, that matters a lot, right? You can't just tell jokes because you think kids like jokes. You have to tell jokes because you genuinely think the jokes are funny and that you are in on what it means to collaborate on something silly together. And I've had tons of experiences with kids where if they can sense that you are authentically yourself, even if that authentic self is way weirder than they want you to be, they are absolutely there for it. That resonates very much for me with my own teaching practice with littles, but also with college students.
Well, speaking of your own teaching practices, I actually have a question for you.
Okay.
As a, someone that I know is also a polymath, as having been an actor, working in the theater, being an educator, being a teacher, being a person at universities that is asked to do more than all those things as well.
Go on.
What are 3 things that you don't do now that you wish you had that extensive knowledge to do?
Yeah. Translate for people across multiple languages.
It's one thing.
That's one. Transport people from one location to another with minimal disruption to anyone's lives.
Like with telekinesis?
Sure.
Okay, that's 2.
That's two. And this is a silly one. I would like to always get the details right. I'm very good with big picture. I'm not so good with details. And so something I would like to be able to do is always have the details of a plan correct the first time.
I think that's 3 things.
Thank you.
That's
I think
enough.
that's 3 things. And Doug, I have a question for you. What are 3 ways that our fabulous and loyal listeners can stay involved with our show?
I totally know this.
You do?
Like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you get podcasts would be a thing.
1.
2 would be visit our website. It's artseducatorspodcast.com.
2.
You can even submit ideas for guests there. It's dos.
Yes, please. 2 things.
And then if you just don't like websites, you can always write to us at, email. That's a thing. artseducatorspodcast@gmail.com. And we'll read it.
3 things. Hope to hear from you soon. Onward together.
Arts Educators Save the World is hosted by Erica Rosenfeld Halverson and produced and co-hosted by me, Alec Lev. Our executive producer is Doug Matica, and our audio producer is Justin Asher. Special thanks to our collaborators, the brilliant and talented Kate Baldwin, and our great friends at Story Pirate Studios, Lee Overtree, Benjamin Salka, and Amy Fiore. Original music is by Dan Lipton, and our artwork is by Lyra Evans. Check out our website designed by Cole Locasio at www.artseducatorspodcast.com. We're on Instagram at artseducatorspodcast, and you can write to us with your questions and comments at contact@artseducatorspodcast.com. You can also find us at a place called YouTube. And wherever you're listening, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps the show. We're proud to be sponsored in part by the University of Wisconsin-Madison and the Gibb Faculty Fellowship. Arts Educators Save the World was created by Erica Rosenfeld Halverson and Alec Lev.